The forbidden archives lay 3 kilometers beneath the city of Geneva, carved into the solid rock of the Swiss mountains. No tourist map showed them. No public record mentioned their existence. For 200 years they had remained sealed, guarded by a small group of humans who called themselves the Keepers. General Yoon Jae-ho descended in the military elevator, his security clearance finally granting him access to humanity's darkest secrets. The elevator moved slowly, giving him time to think about what he was about to see. His daughter was dead. Soo-jin had died badly, her execution broadcast to billions across the galaxy. The Vrak had made sure everyone knew she was his child. They had wanted him to watch. He had watched. And something inside him had changed. Archivist Lim Hyun-woo met him at the bottom. The man was pale and thin as if he spent too much time away from sunlight. His eyes held the weight of terrible knowledge. "General," Lim said quietly, "I am sorry about your daughter." "Show me," Jae-ho replied. He did not want sympathy. He wanted answers. They walked through corridors lined with sealed doors. Each door bore a simple label: Biological Weapons Research, Psychological Warfare Division, Planetary Elimination Protocols, Xenocide Studies. "This is everything," Lim explained as they walked. "Every weapon we designed, every technique we perfected, every method we used to become the most efficient killers in known space." They stopped at a massive vault door marked Project Prometheus. Lim placed his hand on a scanner. The door opened with a sound like breaking thunder. Inside was a room full of holographic displays, star maps, ship designs, battle plans. As they activated, the displays showed humanity's true military capability. "We never stopped building," Lim said. "Even after the Accords, even after we swore to be peaceful. We built ships and hid them in dead systems. We trained soldiers and told them they were researchers. We prepared for the day when we might have no choice." Jae-ho stared at the displays. The ships were beautiful and terrible. They looked like the medical vessels and exploration craft the galaxy knew. But underneath the peaceful exteriors were weapons that could crack moons. "How many?" he asked. 3,000 combat vessels, 50 million trained personnel, weapons stockpiled across 200 systems. Lim paused. "And the special projects." "Special projects?" Lim activated another display. This one showed biological research data. "We never stopped studying other species. Every medical exam we performed, every healing treatment we provided, every diplomatic contact we made. We gathered genetic and psychological data. The screen filled with files on every known species, their weaknesses, their fears, their biological vulnerabilities. 2 centuries of helpful human doctors had compiled the most complete database of alien physiology ever created. We can kill any species in the galaxy without them ever knowing they are under attack," Lim said. "Diseases tailored to specific genetic markers. Psychological warfare programs designed for individual alien mindsets. We know how to make entire civilizations destroy themselves." Jae-ho felt sick. This was not war. This was something far worse. This was the systematic study of genocide as a science. "Why?" he asked. "Why keep building all this if we never intended to use it?" "Because we knew this day would come," Lim replied. "Sooner or later, peace fails. Sooner or later, someone appears who cannot be reasoned with. The Vrak Empire is exactly what we have been preparing for." On Earth's surface, Captain Lee Tae-min walked through the halls of the Human Defense Council. He had been summoned from the rescue operations at Sanctuary Prime. He did not know why. The building was old and simple, designed to look like an administrative center. Nothing about it suggested military power. That was intentional. "Captain," a voice called. He turned to see Counselor Oh Ji-eun approaching. She was elderly, with silver hair and sharp eyes. He had met her once before at a diplomatic reception. "Counselor, you asked to see me?" "Walk with me," she said. They moved through corridors lined with portraits of human leaders, peacekeepers and diplomats and medical pioneers. But Lee Tae-min noticed something odd. Between the public portraits were smaller pictures of people he did not recognize. Men and women in uniforms he had never seen. "Tell me about Dr. Park So-ra," Oh-ji-un said. The question surprised him. She was the best of us, dedicated to healing. She died protecting refugee children. She did. And her death has consequences. They stopped before a large window that looked out over Lake Geneva. The water was calm and blue, reflecting the peaceful Swiss mountains. "Do you know what the Terran Accords really were?" Oh-ji-un asked. "Our peace treaty with ourselves. The year promised to never again wage war." "No." Oh-ji-un turned to face him. "The Accords were humanity's agreement to give peace a chance, but they contained a hidden clause. Article 7, subsection 9. In the face of extinction or the extinction of those under our protection, these accords are suspended." Lee Tae-min felt the world shift around him. Suspended? Dr. Park So-ra died protecting alien children. The Vrak Empire has declared war on mercy itself. Article 7 has been invoked. She handed him a datapad. On the screen was a military commission. His name, his new rank, his new assignment as captain of the dreadnought Compassion's End. "We built ships," Oh-ji-un said simply. "We built armies. We built weapons that make the Vrak Empire look like children playing with sticks. And now we are going to use them." Engineer Bae Min-ho sat in his communication center, watching data streams flow past his screens. But these were not normal communications. These were activation codes. Military, commands, fleet movement orders. All across human space, sleeper ships were waking up. Hidden bases were coming online. Soldiers who thought they were scientists were receiving new orders. He pulled up a star map and watched as contact points lit up one by one. Each light represented a military asset that had been kept secret for 2 centuries. The pattern that emerged was breathtaking. Humanity had not just hidden a few ships. They had built a complete shadow military. For every peaceful colony the galaxy knew about, there were 3 secret military bases. For every medical research station, there were 5 weapons development centers. The human infrastructure the galaxy had helped build was all connected, all controlled, all ready to serve as a military network. Min-ho realized that the quantum communication relays he maintained were not just communication systems. They were command and control networks for the largest military force in galactic history, and they were all coming online at once. Lieutenant Choi Hana had been transferred to a ship she had never heard of. The Prometheus Dawn looked like a standard human transport vessel from the outside. But as she boarded, she saw the truth. Hidden weapon ports lined the hull. The cargo bays contained enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The crew moved with military precision that spoke of years of secret training. "Welcome aboard," said the captain. Hana did not recognize his rank insignia. It looked human, but it was nothing she had seen in any public military documentation. "Sir, I do not understand. My assignment, you will." He handed her a datapad. "These are the real intelligence files on the Vrak Empire. Everything we have learned about them over the past 50 years. Hana read the files with growing amazement. Humanity had been watching the Vrak long before they joined the Galactic Council. They had tracked every ship movement, recorded every communication, analyzed every tactical decision. The Vrak thought they were conquering by surprise. In reality, they were dancing to a script that human strategists had written decades ago. "We let them think they were winning," the captain explained. "We let them grow confident. We let them reveal their true capabilities and intentions, and now we know exactly how to destroy them." He showed her a tactical display. Every Vrak ship in space appeared on the screen. Their locations, their capabilities, their communication frequencies. Everything. "How is this possible?" Hana asked. "Because we built the communication networks they use. Every quantum relay, every navigation beacon, every data transfer protocol in this galaxy has human engineering at its core. We have been watching and listening to everything for 200 years. Hana suddenly understood the scope of what humanity had done. They had not just hidden weapons. They had built the galaxy's entire technological infrastructure as one massive intelligence operation. Every species that had accepted human help with their technology had unknowingly given humanity complete access to their secrets. In the Forbidden Archives, General Yoon Jae-ho stood before the final display. This one showed the ultimate contingency plan, the option that would only be used if all else failed. We call it the Erasure Protocol, Archivist Lim explained. Complete elimination of a hostile species from the galaxy. Not just their military forces, not just their government, everything, their genetic material, their cultural records, their historical artifacts, even the memories of them in other species' minds. That is impossible. No, just very complicated. Lim touched the screen, bringing up detailed plans. Biological agents to eliminate them from every world. Psychological warfare to make other species forget they ever existed. Historical revision to remove them from galactic records. Within 50 years, it would be as if they had never existed at all. Jae-ho stared at the plans. They were detailed down to the molecular level. War Prime Kethmore laughed when he received humanity's ultimatum. 72 hours to surrender? The soft species that ran from every fight was giving him orders. He was still laughing when the first human ship appeared. The vessel looked familiar, a standard human medical cruiser with the Red Cross symbols clearly visible on its white hull. The ship Mercy's Grace had been providing medical aid in the outer systems for decades. Kethmore's own intelligence files listed it as completely harmless. Then the medical ship opened fire. The weapon that emerged from its hidden gun port was unlike anything the Vrak had ever seen. It did not fire energy beams or missiles. Instead, it released a stream of something that looked like silver dust. The dust touched the hull of Kethmore's flagship and began to spread. Within minutes, the mighty iron claw was dissolving. The metal hull simply turned to powder and drifted away, into space. Emergency systems failed. Life support shut down. The great ship that had conquered 17 worlds died quietly, eaten by machines too small to see. Kethmore and his crew evacuated to smaller vessels, watching in horror as their flagship became nothing but empty space and floating debris. What was that? His second-in-command gasped. Nanotechnology, came a new voice over their communication system. It was calm and professional, speaking perfect Vrak. Self-replicating molecular machines. They will consume any Vrak technology they touch. Consider this a demonstration. The voice belonged to Captain Lee Taemin, now commanding the ship that had once been called Mercy's Grace. But its real name was Compassion's End, and it was one of 3,000 vessels that had shed their peaceful disguises. I am offering you one final chance to surrender, Lee Taemin continued. Accept, and your species will be allowed to survive in designated reservations. Refuse, and you will face the Erasure Protocol. Kethmore snarled into his communicator. We do not surrender to prey species. Attack. Destroy them all. The Vrak fleet opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams, missile salvos, kinetic weapons, all of it struck the human ship and simply vanished into shimmering barriers that appeared around its hull. I see you have made your choice, Lee Taemin said sadly. So be it. The transformation happened across the entire galaxy in a matter of hours. Human medical ships revealed massive weapon systems. Human exploration vessels deployed military-grade shields and armor. Human research stations began broadcasting tactical data to coordinate attacks. Dr. Park Sora had died protecting refugee children. Her death had triggered Article 7 of the Terran Accords. Now her former medical colleagues worked with mechanical precision to deploy weapons that could end civilizations. The irony was not lost on any of them. Dr. Choi Ha-rim, Sora's former assistant, stood in what had been a medical laboratory. Now, it was a biological warfare center. The healing nanites they had used to cure alien diseases had been reprogrammed for a different purpose. Atmospheric deployment will begin in 10 minutes, she announced to her team. The modified nanites will target Vrak physiology exclusively. Death will occur within 6 hours. No pain. That is more mercy than they showed our patients. She thought, About the refugee children Sora had died protecting. About the Kithara who would never sing again. About the mernoids whose oceans had been poisoned. The nanites would be merciful. But they would be complete. Lieutenant Choi Hana, now Admiral Choi, coordinated the intelligence operation from the hidden command ship Prometheus Dawn. 2 centuries of galactic surveillance had given humanity perfect knowledge of every Vrak. Installation. Fleet Group Alpha, proceed to Vrak Prime, she ordered. Fleet Group Beta, secure the industrial worlds. Fleet Group Gamma, begin elimination of military assets. The Vrak had built their empire on 43 worlds. Each world was now being approached by human vessels that the galaxy had never known existed. The attacks were surgical, precise, overwhelming. Vrak warships that had terrorized helpless species found themselves facing human vessels with weapons. That seemed impossible. Shields that absorbed any attack, guns that fired bullets made of collapsed matter, missiles that could track targets across multiple star systems. But the most devastating weapons were not technological. They were biological. Engineer Bei Min Ho monitored the biological warfare deployment from his command center. Every Vrak world was receiving the same gift, modified viruses that would attack Vrak genetic material while leaving every other species untouched. The viruses were works of art. They had been designed by human doctors who knew Vrak physiology better than the Vrak themselves. 200 years of helpful medical examinations had given humanity the complete genetic blueprint of every species in the galaxy. Deployment complete on all targets, Minho reported. Estimated time to complete species elimination, 72 hours. But elimination was only the first phase. On Earth, archivist Lim Hyun Woo activated the historical revision protocols. Across the galaxy, quantum transmissions began altering digital records. References to the Vrak Empire were being systematically removed from libraries, databases, and historical archives. The nanites that were killing Vrak soldiers would also destroy any artifact or artwork that mentioned their species. The viruses would eliminate their genetic material from the galaxy completely. Within a year, it would be as if the Vrak had never existed at all. General Yoon Jae-ho stood in the memorial chamber they had built for his daughter, Corporal Yoon. Sujin's name was carved in stone alongside the names of all the humans who had died on Sanctuary Prime. They will not be forgotten, he said quietly to her memory, but those who killed them will be. He activated the final phase of the erasure protocol. Across the galaxy, hidden human psychologists began broadcasting subliminal messages designed to make other species forget the Vrak entirely. The messages were subtle, effective, built on 2 centuries of studying alien psychology. Within a generation, no species in the galaxy would remember that the Vrak Empire had ever existed. Ambassador Kim Woo-jin found himself alone in the Galactic Council chambers. Representatives from dozens of species had attended the emergency session, but when the human delegation had arrived, they had all left. Word was spreading fast. Humanity was not what they seemed. The healers and peacemakers had revealed themselves as the galaxy's most efficient killers. Please, Kim said to the empty chamber. We did not want this. We tried every peaceful option, but when mercy fails, what choice do we have? His words echoed in the empty space. Outside the station, human warships moved in formations that spoke of centuries of military planning. The galaxy had asked for humanity's protection, and now they were seeing what that protection really looked like. Captain Lee Tae-min stood on the bridge of Compassion's End as the last Vrak world fell silent. The planet below had once been home to 4 billion Vrak soldiers and workers. Now it was simply another empty world, ready to be cleaned and resettled by species that had not chosen genocide as their way of life. Status report, he requested. All Vrak military assets eliminated. All Vrak population centers neutralized. Historical revision 90% complete. Psychological conditioning proceeding on schedule. Lee Tae-min nodded. It was done. The Vrak Empire had lasted exactly 73 hours after they had ignored humanity's ultimatum. What are your orders regarding the former Vrak territories, sir? Begin ecosystem restoration. Remove all traces of Vrak presence. Prepare the worlds for new colonists from species the Vrak displaced. It was perfect justice, really. The worlds the Vrak had stolen would be given to the species they had tried to destroy. Dr. Choi Ha-rim worked in her new laboratory, developing medical treatments for the refugee children who would grow up never knowing that their family's killers had ever existed. The children from Cathera would receive treatments to help them sing again. The children from the Mernoid worlds would get therapy to help them trust water again. She was still a healer, but now she also carried the knowledge of how to destroy species with the same precision she used to save them. The duality no longer troubled her. Some things were worth preserving. Some things were worth destroying. Knowing the difference was what made humans human. Engineer Bae Min-ho sent his final report to Earth. Vrak elimination complete. Erasure protocol successful. Galaxy returning. To pre-Vrak baseline. No species retains memory of Vrak existence. He paused before sending one additional message. Recommend increased surveillance of remaining aggressive species. Pattern analysis suggests 3 potential future threats requiring monitoring. Humanity had learned its lesson. They would never again allow a genocidal species to grow strong enough to threaten the innocent. Admiral Choi Ha-na received reports from across the galaxy. Human ships were returning to their peaceful disguises. Weapons were being hidden again. The shadow military was going back to sleep, but they would be ready. Always ready. She opened a communication channel to all human forces. Operation Mercy complete. Return to standard peaceful protocols. Remember, we are healers first, warriors, only when we must be. The responses came from 3,000 ships. Understood, returning to healing mode. In the refugee camps on Station Harmony, children played games and laughed. They were safe now. The monsters that had killed their families were gone, and they would never come back. The children did not know this, of course. The morning sky over Seoul changed forever when 12 massive ships appeared above Earth. Dr. Hyun-woo Kim was drinking his coffee in his lab when every communication device in the building started screaming at once. Emergency alerts flooded every screen. The radio crackled with urgent messages in dozens of languages. Outside his window, people stopped walking and pointed up at the sky. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Each one was the size of a city, floating silently in the atmosphere. They had smooth, curved surfaces that seemed to shift color in the sunlight. No engines were visible, yet they stayed perfectly still in the air. The largest ship positioned itself directly above the United Nations building in New York. Admiral So-Young Park was in her office at the Seoul Defense Command when the red phone rang. The caller was the President of the United Earth Government, and his voice was tight with worry. "Admiral, we need you in New York immediately," he said. "The aliens want to talk." So-Young had spent 20 years preparing for this moment. Every military officer knew that first contact was possible, but no one expected it to happen like this. The ships had simply appeared without warning. No radio signals, no advance notice, nothing. Earth's most advanced radar systems had detected nothing until the ships were already there. Within 6 hours, representatives from every major nation were gathering at the United Nations. Dr. Hyun-woo Kim found himself on a military transport plane, flying toward what might be the most important meeting in human history. He had been chosen as Earth's lead scientist for the contact team because of his work in biology and communication theory. "Do we know anything about them yet?" Hyun-woo asked Admiral Park as their plane descended toward New York. "Very little," she replied, looking out the window at the massive ship hovering above the city. "They've been scanning us for the past few hours. Our computers can detect the scans, but we can't understand what they're looking for." The ship above New York was slowly lowering a smaller craft toward the United Nations building. This smaller ship was still huge, about the size of a football stadium. It settled gently onto the plaza in front of the building, crushing several parked cars but causing no other damage. President Ji-ho Lee of Korea and Prime Minister Yoon-ji Choi of the European Federation were already waiting in the main assembly hall when Hyun-woo and So-Young arrived. The hall had been cleared of everyone except essential personnel. Security teams surrounded the building. though everyone knew their weapons would be useless against beings who could build ships like these. A door appeared in the side of the alien craft. It simply formed out of what had been solid metal moments before. 3 figures emerged and walked toward the United Nations building. They moved like humans, but were clearly not human. The leader was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished crystal. Light seemed to move through its body in slow waves. Behind it walked 2 others, one covered in what looked like living metal scales and another that seemed to be made of flowing energy, held in a roughly human shape. They entered the assembly hall without any guards or weapons. The crystal being stepped forward and spoke. Its voice came from everywhere at once, as if the air itself was speaking. "I am Ambassador Velthar of the Alterian Consortium," it said. "I speak for the Galactic Confederation, which governs this region of space. We come in peace to welcome Earth into the galactic community." President Lee stood up slowly. "We welcome you to Earth, Ambassador Velthar. I am President Lee, and these are our representatives. We are honored by your visit." Velthar's head tilted slightly as if it was surprised by something. "You speak as equals," it said. "This is unexpected. Most primitive species show proper deference when first contacted." Admiral Park felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her expression neutral. Dr. Hyunwoo stepped forward slightly. "We mean no disrespect, Ambassador," Hyunwoo said carefully. "Perhaps our customs are different from what you've encountered before. We would be happy to learn about your confederation." "Of course," Velthar replied. "The Galactic Confederation consists of 12 advanced species who have maintained peace and order in this galaxy for over 50,000 of your years. We have observed your species' rapid technological development with interest." The energy being behind Velthar moved forward. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind through metal. "I am Commander Nexus of the Void Touched," it said. "Your species has developed faster than any we have recorded. In only 2 centuries, you have gone from primitive tools to space travel. This rate of advancement is dangerous." "Dangerous?" Prime Minister Choi asked. "Young species often destroy themselves," the scaled being explained. "I am General Korath of the Iron Scales. We have seen it happen many times. A species develops powerful weapons before developing wisdom. They fight wars that destroy their worlds." Velthar gestured with one crystalline hand. "This is why the Confederation exists. We guide young species, help them avoid the mistakes that lead to extinction. We offer Earth membership in our community." "What would membership involve?" "President," Lee asked. "First, you would surrender all weapons of mass destruction to Confederation oversight," Velthar explained. "Second, you would accept Confederation technology advisors to guide your development. Third, you would contribute resources to the common good of all member species." Admiral Park exchanged a quick glance with Dr. Hyunwoo. This was starting to sound less like an invitation and more like a demand for surrender. "And if we prefer to develop independently?" Hyunwoo asked. The 3 aliens became very still. Commander Nexus spoke first. "Independent development is not permitted," it said. "Young species cannot be trusted with dangerous technologies. The safety of the galaxy requires Confederation oversight." "We are offering you a great honor," General Korath added. "Most species beg for the protection and guidance we provide. You would be foolish to refuse." President Lee stood up. "We appreciate your offer, Ambassador Velthar, but the people of Earth value their independence. We would prefer to remain free to choose our own path." The silence in the room was heavy. The 3 aliens looked at each other in what seemed like confusion. Finally, Velthar spoke again. "You do not understand," it said slowly. "This is not a choice. The Confederation cannot allow an unguided species to develop advanced weapons. The risk is too great." "Are you threatening us?" Admiral Park asked, her voice cold. "We are offering protection," Velthar replied. "But protection can be given willingly, or imposed by necessity. The choice is yours." Dr. Hyunwoo felt his heart racing, but he kept his voice calm. "How long do we have to consider your offer?" 30 of your standard days," Commander Nexus answered. "At the end of that time, you will accept Confederation guidance or we will impose it for the safety of all." With that, the three aliens turned and walked back to their ship. The door reformed behind them and the craft lifted silently into the air. Within minutes, it had rejoined the larger ship hovering above the city. The human representatives sat in stunned silence for several minutes. Finally, President Lee spoke. "It seems we have a month to decide between slavery and war." "Maybe not," Admiral Park said quietly. "Maybe we have a third option they don't know about." Dr. Hyunwoo looked up at the ceiling, thinking about the massive ships floating above them. "What kind of third option?" So Young smiled grimly. "The kind that might surprise them as much as they've surprised us." Outside, the alien ships continued their silent vigil over Earth. But in the assembly hall, the leaders of humanity began planning something the galaxy had never seen before. 24 hours after the aliens delivered their ultimatum, every government on Earth received the same message. It was short and simple. Emergency Protocol 7 is now active. Report to designated facilities immediately. Dr. Hyunwoo Kim had never heard of Emergency Protocol 7. Neither had Admiral So Young Park. But within hours, they found themselves on a military transport heading toward a location that didn't exist on any map. The flight took them over the Pacific Ocean, far from any shipping lanes. After 3 hours of flying over empty water, Hyunwoo saw something impossible. A massive structure was rising from the ocean, water cascading off its sides like waterfalls. It was bigger than an aircraft carrier and had been completely hidden beneath the waves. "What is that?" Hyunwoo asked the pilot. "Deep Space Research Station Alpha," the pilot replied. "One of 7 similar facilities around the world. Today is the first day they've been allowed to surface." As their transport landed on the facility's deck, Hyunwoo realized that everything humanity thought they knew about their own capabilities was wrong. Hundreds of people were moving around the facility with the efficiency of those who had been working here for years. This wasn't something built in response to the alien arrival. This had been planned for decades. A woman in a white lab coat approached them as they stepped off the transport. She was young, maybe 35, with short black hair and the calm confidence of someone used to being in charge. "Dr. Kim, Admiral Park, welcome to Station Alpha," she said, bowing slightly. "I'm Dr. Taemin Yoon, Director of the Deep Space Research Division." "Deep Space Research Division?" So Young asked. "I've never heard of your organization." "That was the point," Taemin replied with a slight smile. "We've been operating in secret for 47 years, preparing for exactly this situation." She led them through corridors filled with technology that looked decades ahead of anything Hyunwoo had ever seen. Holographic displays showed star maps with detail that should have been impossible. Workers in clean suits were assembling devices that seemed to bend light around themselves. 47 years? Hyunwoo asked. "But first contact just happened. Yesterday." "First official contact," Taemin corrected. "We've been detecting alien signals for decades. We knew they were out there, and we knew they would eventually come here. The question was whether they would come as friends or conquerors." They entered a massive central chamber where dozens of screens showed views of space around Earth. The alien ships were clearly visible, but there were other objects too, things that definitely weren't alien ships but didn't look like any human technology Hyunwoo recognized. "Are those ours?" Admiral Park asked, pointing at the mysterious objects. "Yes," Taemin said proudly. "Meet the Earth Defense Network." 47. Automated platforms positioned throughout the solar system. Each one equipped with technologies that would make our alien visitors very nervous if they knew about them. President Ji-ho Lee and Prime Minister Yoon-ji Choi were already in the chamber, along with other world leaders who had arrived on earlier transports. They all had the same expression of shock and confusion that Hyunwoo felt. "Dr. Yoon," President Lee said, "I think you need to explain exactly what's been happening while the rest of us thought we were running our governments." Taemin gestured to the largest screen, which showed a detailed view of the solar system. Red dots marked the positions of the alien ships, while blue dots showed human installations. 47 years ago, the world's government secretly agreed to fund the Deep Space Research Division, she began. The project was so classified that only a handful of people in each government knew about it. The goal was simple: prepare humanity for contact with alien civilizations. But how did you keep it secret? Prime Minister Choi asked. By hiding in plain sight, Taemin replied. Many of our facilities were disguised as other projects. The Antarctic Research Station is actually a testing ground for gravity manipulation technology. The International Space Station has been a cover for building the first generation of faster-than-light communication devices. Hyun-woo felt like the world was spinning. Faster-than-light communication? That's supposed to be impossible. According to conventional physics, yes, Taemin agreed. But we stopped limiting ourselves to conventional physics a long time ago. She pressed a button and the view on the main screen changed. Now it showed what looked like empty space, but with strange distortions in the starlight. 3 days ago, we deployed our first cloaked reconnaissance ships, Taemin continued. They've been observing the alien fleet from close range. We know exactly what weapons they carry, how their shields work, and how their faster-than-light drives function. And, Admiral Park asked, and their technology is impressive but not beyond our ability to counter, Taemin said. In some areas, we're actually more advanced than they are. The room fell silent. Finally, President Lee spoke. Dr. Yoon, are you telling us that humanity can fight these aliens and win? I'm telling you that humanity doesn't need to fight them at all, Taemin replied. We have something much better than weapons. She pressed another button and the screens showed a new image. It was one of the alien ships, but now Hyun-woo could see it was surrounded by a faint shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. 2 hours ago, we demonstrated something to our alien visitors, Taemin explained. We surrounded each of their ships with a localized space-time distortion field. Nothing dangerous, just a gentle reminder that we can affect their ships any time we choose. How did they react? So, Young asked. They tried to move away from Earth immediately, Taemin said with satisfaction, but they discovered that their faster-than-light drives won't function inside our distortion fields. They're stuck here until we decide to let them leave. Prime Minister Choi leaned forward. What exactly are you proposing we do? We're going to have another conversation with Ambassador Velthar, Taemin said, but this time we'll be negotiating from a position of strength. Just then alarms began sounding throughout the facility. A technician called out from one of the workstations. Dr. Yoon, the aliens are trying to contact us. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. Put it through, Taemin ordered. Ambassador. Velthar's voice filled the chamber, but now it sounded different. Less confident, more worried. Humans of Earth, the alien said. We have detected unusual energy signatures around our vessels. We request immediate clarification of your intentions. Taemin picked up a communication device. Ambassador Velthar, this is Dr. Taemin Yoon of the Earth Defense Network. We would like to schedule a second meeting to discuss the terms of our relationship. Your, defense network? Velthar's voice was uncertain. We detected no such network during our initial scans. That's because you weren't looking in the right dimensions, Taemin replied calmly. We've prepared a demonstration of our capabilities. Please observe the small asteroid located approximately 1 million kilometers from your current position. On top, the screens, everyone could see a rocky asteroid floating in space. It was maybe a kilometer across, tumbling slowly as it drifted through the solar system. We are observing, Velthar said. Taemin pressed a single button. The asteroid simply vanished. Not destroyed, not broken apart, just gone. Where did it go? Velthar's voice was sharp with alarm. Approximately 4 light-years away, Taemin answered. Don't worry, it's in empty space. We can bring it back if you'd like to verify this. The silence from the alien ship lasted for several minutes. When Velthar finally spoke again, his voice was very different. We would very much like to schedule that second meeting. Dr. Hyun-woo looked around the chamber at the faces of Earth's leaders. Yesterday, they had been preparing to either surrender or face extinction. Today, they were the ones with unthinkable power. Set up the meeting, President Lee said quietly. But this time, we'll be doing the talking. The second meeting took place in the same United Nations Assembly Hall, but everything else was different. This time, Ambassador Velthar and his companions entered the room like beings who had just discovered they were walking into a trap they didn't understand. Dr. Hyunwoo Kim watched the three aliens take their seats across from the human delegation. The crystal beings' light patterns were moving faster than before, which he suspected meant nervousness. Commander Nexus kept shifting between solid and energy forms, and General Korath's scales were darker than they had been 2 days earlier. Admiral, So Young Park had requested permission to bring additional personnel to this meeting. Seated beside her were Captain Minsu Kang and Engineer Heejin Nam from the Deep Space Research Division. Both wore simple uniforms that gave no hint of their actual capabilities. Ambassador Velthar, President Lee began, "Thank you for agreeing to this second meeting. We hope we can reach a better understanding." "Yes," Velthar replied, but his voice lacked the confidence it had held before. "We have been reviewing our initial assessment of your species. Perhaps we were hasty in our conclusions." Dr. Taemin Yoon, who had been granted a place at the main table, smiled politely. "We understand that our capabilities may have come as a surprise. Would you like us to explain some of what you've observed?" General Korath leaned forward. "Your ships," he said. "Our sensors cannot properly track them. They appear and disappear at random. They're not disappearing." Captain Minsu Kang spoke for the first time. "They're moving through folded spacetime. Instead of traveling from point A to point B, we create a temporary connection that allows us to step from one location to another." "That's impossible," Commander Nexus stated flatly. "Folding spacetime requires energy levels that would destroy any vessel attempting it." Engineer Hyejin Nam reached into her bag and pulled out a device the size of a coffee cup. She placed it on the table between the two delegations. "This is a portable gravity manipulator," she said simply. "It can create localized spacetime, distortions using about as much energy as a flashlight." She pressed a button on the device. Immediately, everyone in the room felt a strange sensation, as if they were suddenly falling upward. The sensation lasted only a second before returning to normal. "You just experienced a microfold," Hyejin explained. "For 1 second, this room existed in 2 places at once. If we had maintained the field longer, we could have moved the entire building to anywhere in the galaxy." The 3 aliens stared at the small device with what Hyunwoo recognized as fear. "How long have you possessed this technology?" Velthar asked. "This particular device was completed 6 months ago," Dr. Yoon replied. "But we've been working on gravity manipulation for over 20 years. 20 years? General Korath's voice rose in pitch. "But you only achieved spaceflight 2 centuries ago." "We've been busy," Admiral Park said dryly. Velthar turned to Bo, his companions, and began speaking in a language that sounded like wind chimes mixed with static electricity. The conversation was brief but intense. When he turned back to the humans, his crystal body was pulsing with rapid light patterns. "We must contact the Confederation Council," he said. "This situation is beyond our authority to handle." "Of course," President Lee replied. "But while we wait for their response, perhaps we should discuss what humanity actually wants from this relationship." "What you want?" Commander Nexus seemed confused by the question. "Yes," Dr. Hyunwoo Kim said, stepping forward. "You've told us what the Confederation wants from us, but you haven't asked what we might want from you." "Young species don't get to want things," General Korath said automatically, then seemed to realize how that sounded. Prime Minister Choi leaned back in her chair. "Perhaps that's been the problem with your previous first contacts." Over the next several hours, while Ambassador Velthar sent increasingly urgent messages to the Confederation Council, the humans explained their perspective. They weren't interested in joining a hierarchy where they would be treated as children. They weren't willing to surrender their independence for protection they didn't need. "But what you're describing," Velthar said during one of their breaks, "it's never happened before. Species that develop advanced technology without Confederation guidance always destroy themselves." "Maybe," Dr. Yoon suggested, "that's because the Confederation takes away their motivation to be careful." "What do you mean?" "If someone else is responsible for your safety," Captain Kang explained, You stop learning how to be safe yourself. But if you know that your survival depends on your own wisdom, you develop that wisdom. The aliens had no answer for that. When the response from the Confederation Council finally arrived, it was not what anyone expected. Instead of orders for Velthar's delegation, a new ship appeared in Earth's orbit. This one was even larger than the others, and its design was completely different. Where the Confederation ships were smooth and curved, this new arrival was angular and covered with what looked like weapon emplacements. "That's a Nexari Dominarch vessel," Commander Nexus said, his energy form flickering with what seemed like anxiety. "The Nexari are the oldest and most powerful species in the Confederation. If they've sent a Dominarch, this situation has become very serious." Admiral Park activated her communication device. "Dr. Yoon, are you seeing this?" "We see it," came the reply from the research station. "We're also tracking 12 more ships approaching from different directions. It looks like the Confederation is sending a full battle fleet." General Korath looked pale, if that was possible for a being covered in metal scales. "This is not good," he muttered. "Dominarch Thexel is not known for patience or diplomacy." "Should we be worried?" President Lee asked. "Very worried," Velthar replied. "A Dominarch has the authority to sterilize planets that pose a threat to galactic stability." Dr. Hyunwoo felt a chill run down his spine. "Are you saying they might destroy Earth?" "If they believe humanity cannot be controlled," Commander Nexus said quietly, "then yes. They will destroy Earth to prevent you from spreading your dangerous technologies to other species." The room fell silent as this sank in. Finally, Engineer Nam spoke up. "Dr. Yoon, what's the status of our defensive systems?" "All platforms are active and ready," came the reply. "But Hyunwoo, we're about to find out if 47 years of preparation was enough." On the screens around the room, they could see the Nexari ship slowly descending toward Earth. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of the other Confederation vessels. As it approached, smaller ships began emerging from its hull like angry hornets leaving a nest. "How many ships is that?" Admiral Park asked. "Approximately 300 combat vessels," Dr. Yoon reported, "plus the Dominarch ship itself." Ambassador Velthar stood up abruptly. "Humans, you must understand. Dominarch Thexel will not negotiate. If you resist, he will order the destruction of your entire world." "Then I guess," President Lee said calmly, "it's time to show the galaxy that humanity is full of surprises." He pressed a button on his communication device. "Dr. Yoon, activate Protocol Alpha." "With pleasure, Mr. President." Across the solar system, 47 hidden platforms began powering up systems that had never been tested in actual combat. On Earth, in the depths of the ocean, in secret facilities buried under mountains, and in disguised installations on the Moon and Mars, humanity's true defense network came online. The Nexari Dominarch was about to discover that some young species, bite back,